Hello fellow 3D enthusiast, my name is Ian, and today I wanted to talk to you about sculpting out organic elements in a scene. This is a technique that I use because, let's face it, cubes and cylinders can only get you so far, and eventually you'll start to have to add in quite a bit more detail to get something more realistic. If I go into local view here, you can see these are some major elements in this scene that I've sculpted, and you can get a pretty nice organic look with them. So I thought I would show you today some sculpting basics, and I'm just going to recreate this arch here. So I'm going to start by placing my 3D cursor in that general vicinity with shift and right mouse button. Then I'm just going to actually start with a cylinder. And that's my first step. We actually do want to start with primitives, but let's go nothing for the cap fill type. And then I'm just going to rotate this on the x-axis by 90 degrees to set it up, RX90. Let's scale it up with S, and then scale it down on the local z-axis, SZZ. And this is looking pretty good. When you scale things down like that though, in object mode, it's generally a good idea to apply the rotation before you start sculpting them, or your sculpt will end up all weird looking. So I'm going to go Control A and then scale. So that'll apply the scale. If we go Tab and then go into edit mode, I'm just going to go into front view real quick here and toggle X-ray mode with the Z. I'm just going to select all these vertices here below. X, delete those. Select everything with A, I, hold down Control, and just move your mouse to the right there. Then we've got something looking a little bit more thick here. I'm just going to go into local view with slash on the number pad. And if I select this edge here and hold down Control and then left mouse button, that will select a path in between my two selections. So I've got this wall here. If I go Shift, that will select that one. Then just keep holding Control, and that will keep selecting these two edges here. So now that I've done that, I can go Control E, and then L will bridge two edge loops. So now we have a solid arch here. So this is where we can have quite a bit of fun. I'm going to go Tab and then go into Sculpt mode. And what I'm going to do here is select Dynamic Topology. There's a little checkbox there, a little dialog box, just hit OK. And I'm going to get out my graphics tablet real quick. And we can just begin to sculpt all over this arch. And the cool thing about dynamic topology is wherever you zoom in, it will start adding more and more detail. I'm going to show you my favorite brushes here real quick. First of all, we've got the clay strips. Then we've also got the smooth brush, and we've got the crease brush. And I'll show you what those two do in a second here, but let's start with the clay strips and just kind of start adding in some detail to this, so it's not a completely solid chunk of who knows what. And you can see here, sometimes it's a little funky with the rotation, but if you're zooming in, it shouldn't be too bad. And also, if you apply the rotation and scale, like I mentioned before, that's probably a good idea. So I'm going to hit rotation and scale once more. Make sure we check it again, because we left sculpt mode. Alright, let's try this again. Nice. That hits it pretty well there. Although if you're zoomed out more, then it can be a little bit more crazy. But I'm going to take down my radius a little bit here and just kind of sculpt a nice edge along the side, just to get some definition of where our brick arch is going to be. And the cool thing about dynamic topology is it will only add detail where you want it to be. So if the camera is not going to see the backside of this arch, then that is fine if we don't sculpt over there. And you can add quite a bit of resolution to the front part, just so that it looks really nice. Okay, so we've got some basic clay strips going on here. Got a little bit of definition going on, that's not bad. If we just hit this with a little bit of, oh, that just undid all my hard work. Let's try that again. There we go, we can just get a little bit of definition, a little bit of detail, and there's not really a right or wrong way to do this at the moment. We're just getting in some detail. And this is a really nice fluid way to work, as opposed to edit mode where it's all just vertices and you're merging them together. This is a lot more like drawing, which is nice. I really enjoy it. Okay, let's talk about a couple other brushes here. If we hit the smooth icon here, we can go along this and just kind of smooth it out. Pretty self-explanatory there. If we wanted, we could just go along here And now we've got a fairly nice organic looking object. Cool. So when you're doing brickwork, you can see these lines in here. The crease brush really comes into play very heavily. We can actually hit period, and that will zoom into where we were last sculpting, which is really sweet. I'm just going to drag along here and align with my crease brush. That's a fairly big crease, so let's undo that real quick. I'm going to turn down my radius. Let's try 22 pixels. Okay, well that's alright. Let's zoom in a little bit more for more resolution. There we go. Now we have a nice defined crack line thingy. And when you're doing stuff like stonework, it's a good idea to keep in mind that this was probably built in a whole bunch of different chunks. So that's kind of the way I'm thinking here. Doesn't have to be perfect, because at least in my scene these are kind of ruins, so they're probably crumbling quite a bit. And maybe they didn't do such a great job when they were putting it together, something like that. Now, if you do want to make it look really messed up and crumbled, if we go back to our clay strips and change this from a plus to a minus up here, that will change it to a subtraction method. So instead of adding on geometry, it's cutting out of it, which looks kind of strange when you do a nice line like that, but we can also just kind of go like this and gouge it out like a piece fell out or something, which is pretty sweet looking. Yeah, that's really nice. I'm a fan. As you can see here, there's all sorts of other brushes that you can certainly explore if you wish, but those are the main three that I use. Now let's go on for a hot second here to talk about materials and how you're going to want to put textures on these things. So if I go into the shading view here, that is all messed up. Nice. This is the material setup for my rock shader. It's fairly simple, lots of just kind of drag and drop basic texture. But one thing I'd like to focus on real quick is my rock textures here. So if we take a good look at this and look at this, what I've got here that is not set up by default is I've got this set to box rather than flat, and I've got the blend amount up a little bit. And I've also got a generated texture coordinate going through a mapping node into the vector on my texture. And what this will basically do is project the texture from all different sides of the model instead of just from the top. And the great thing about this is we can completely bypass UV unwrapping. If we look at this model in edit mode, that would definitely be a pain in the butt to UV unwrap this. Of course you can retopologize it, all that fun stuff, but I kind of like to keep the detail of my sculpt. So I'm just going to leave the sculpt this way, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put on a material that projects textures from all different sides. And if you'd like, I can go more into depth on this type of material, but I'm going to leave it at there for now. And hey, I forgot something actually. You can kind of see these crazy patterns drawn into the rock there, and that actually, believe it or not, was just the crease brush once again, and I just zoomed right in to get lots of nice detail. Make sure dynamic topology is checked, and let's just go like this. Very nice. That's pretty much how I did that. And the smaller your brush size, of course, the smaller of a mark you'll make. More high detail you can get. And you can do all sorts of crazy stuff with it. So that is pretty much all of this technique. If you're interested in seeing more videos like this, there's a link in the description that says free hydraulic kit bash elements, and when you click that, it will actually add you to my email list. I'll make sure the first thing I send you are some hydraulic kit bash elements for Blender, and then in the future, whenever I post a tutorial, I'll just send out an email to that list to keep you up to date. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Have an excellent after day, and cheers!